Okay, so this is Swasthani that I'm going to talk about tonight, and it's really a pleasure to present this work in this setting. It really brings together two very important communities to my life and two very important sources of joy and practice. So Swasthani is a ritual that the Nepalese Bhutanese practice. They practice it every year from the full moon in January to the full moon in February. So I want to talk about that both because it's really fascinating in and of itself. It's important for us to learn what's happening with the communities that are coming as refugees and immigrants to the States and are part of our community. And most of all, what we can learn that influences us and adds to our own practice, what we can gain from the insights of other groups. So Swasthani has many meanings in this context. It's going to refer to the woman who is the Swasthani initiate, and I'll talk about that. It refers to the sacred text, and I do have a copy of it here if someone wants to look at it and knows Nepali, or even if you don't, it's really an interesting artifact to have. It refers to this text. It refers to a space, a sacred center space. It refers to a goddess. It refers to a ritual and a performance. All of these things go by the name of Swasthani, right, in your own place. So I was really interested. I was just invited to this ceremony one year because I became very involved with the Nepali Bhutanese community. And I was very interested in it because this is a quote from the text of Swasthani, also called Swasthani, that you do the ritual because of single-minded concentration on Swasthani, all things become real. So this is a practice of consciousness, of developing a certain kind of consciousness where you can make things happen. In particular, the women of the Bhutanese community are foremost practitioners of Swasthani. Everybody can practice it. In Nepal, it's generally practiced, but here mostly women practice it. And they usually have requests like there's a sickness in the family, that they are going to pray to the goddess Swasthani to heal. The return of a loved one, they will also practice this ritual for the month for that, or to gain a handsome bridegroom, right? Very important things. So this is the model, that if you concentrate on Swasthani, do these practices, the things that you are focused on become real. How does that happen, and what does real mean for this study? I learned this is the family that I first became involved with when the Bhutanese refugees started coming to America in 2008. This was one of the first families that came. And so this is a very beloved family to me. They were 21 people who eventually, over 3 years, ended up coming here, and now they moved to Ohio. So that's a big loss for us, for our community, and for me personally. But they were very generous, wonderful people and invited me to their rituals. And what an insight I was able to gain from them by being included in their family as one of them. For the Americans in the group, because we have less of a sense of geography than other cultures, Bhutan is right there with India and China, and so is Nepal. And this is part of the reason why the refugees spent 18 years in refugee camps, because when you're politically situated between places that have that the countries, major powers, have political investments in, you don't get your situation addressed very well. So I won't go too much into the refugee situation, but they fled the ethnic cleansing of the Buddhist government in Bhutan, went to Nepal, where they were in refugee camps. This is Chandra, the mother of the family. And I just wanted to show you her home shrine, because what we're looking at is a form of worship that's coming from the Himalayas. So that's going to present certain emphasis in the ritual and in the belief systems that are particular to that area of the world. So she has her guru, but it's very much an emphasis on Shiva and the worship of Shiva as well. This is the sacred text. This is the Swasthani ritual. Now, for the women who undertake to be a Swasthani initiate, there are certain requirements that they have to do. For that month, they fast, okay, for the whole month. And that means that they do a priestly diet, so they don't eat meat. They only have one bowl of rice at noontime, no spices and the like. So that's their diet for the month of fasting. They bathe in the river 3 times a day. Here, of course, that's modified a little because we don't have the Ganges running so close to, or the Himalayas nearby, but they have to bathe 3 times a day. And every day when they have their meal, they read 1 chapter of the Swasthani text. The Swasthani text is very, very important. This ritual, which I find so meaningful and so powerful, is really little known outside of Nepal. It seems to have originated as an oral tradition amongst the Nuari community, which is more of the indigenous community of Nepal. And then in the 1500s, when it was, typed into books, it became sect. But what you're going to see is, as we go into the stories, a lot of influence from the Puranas and from Vedic practices as well. And so they have molded all these sources into a very unique and a wonderful practice. So the Swasthani initiate, 1 chapter, the book has 31 chapters. So during the course of the month, they read 1 chapter a day after they eat their rice. And then at the end of the month is an all-night ritual, which I will show you, which is where you read the text over and over again, from sundown to sunrise, from beginning to the end and beginning to the end again, over and over again, till with the sunrise you time the final chapter of the reading then. And then some rituals are done. So I want to show you all that and go into the religious and spiritual experience within this ritual leads us to. So here's the reading of the text. And this is from the text itself. So this is how important the reading itself is. So whoever keeps Swasthani in their heart and does puja or tells the story, or even listens to the story, or has the story told by another, or whoever writes a book of these stories, keeps this book in their home, those persons will always have well-being. Okay, you guys automatically are in that category, right? So you're hearing the story tonight. Their pain and misery will be eliminated. They will be protected. Lakshmi, the goddess of luck, wealth, and prosperity, will reside in their homes. In their home, they will be able to overcome their fears. Those persons will enjoy supreme happiness and fortune, and in the next world will never be reborn and die, but live with the gods on Kailasa. Devotion to Swasthani through recitation, meditation, reciting sostras, puja, and stories is the highest and greatest thing in the whole world. Okay, so this is the text, right? It's right there. This is very important. And in fact, for the Nepalese and Bhutanese Hindu population, it's true. It's very, very important. Some people have said it's even more important than the Bhagavad Gita or the Mahabharata, because this is a text that's read every single year and over again in that month as well. So how many times do people read the other texts, main texts, but this one every year and multiple times through the course of the night? So this is a central text. They read it during this month period, and then it's wrapped and put away until the next month. next year. I'm sorry. Okay, and during that night of the reading, what happens is it's the woman who is the Swasthani will be there reading mostly through the night, but she also has what we would call a mentor. She has to do it with someone who has already gone through the Swasthani ritual before and had her wishes granted by the goddess Swasthani. So it's sort of a mentor relationship, but it's also because the rites have to be practiced very precisely. The ritual is intended as a process of purification, and that's going to be a very important concept, because the more you reach that state of purification, the more you approach Swasthani itself, and we will get into that. The Chandra on the right with the orange dress, she was the mentor for not this woman, but another woman who was the Swasthani initiate that year. Chandra had done Swasthani for 5 years, and her prayer and the purpose of Swasthani she did was to get her husband out of the Bhutanese jails. When the government decided to do their ethnic cleansing and persecution of the Hindus of the south in Bhutan, they targeted people who were visible and struggling for human rights. So one night her husband disappeared into the Bhutanese jail system, where he was tortured and abducted. It was really, a really intense time. She had just given birth to twins on top of it, so this was a very, very critical, traumatic time for Chandra. So she did Swasthani, right? She did it every year for 5 years, asking the goddess for the return of her husband. See, this is the kind of thing that you would need this single-minded concentration to achieve that goal, so that could become real. Now, as Americans, we are, 5 years, right? That sounds like too long. We like things fast and instant, right? Gratification right there, no waiting. But that's not what this is about. This idea that the gods just have to respond to you just because you ask like that isn't a concept that is relevant to them culturally. For Chandra, she would do it as long as it took. And in fact, when her husband appeared, when he was let out of the prison and he appeared during Swasthani, that just proved everything, right? That this was, in fact, real, as the quote said. And as you see, the book, as much as women here tend to be the main practitioners of Swasthani for these requests, when the Swasthani text is read that evening of the all-night ritual, everybody in the community comes through, and people pick it up, read parts, pass it on, and you can see there are men who read it. Sometimes it's chanted. Women come through reading it. The refugees made me this dress, and I'm still not good at doing this. So you can see it's a whole community event. And I think that's another lesson we can have in mind, that this isn't an individual practice. As much as an individual woman takes it on, it's part of a community identity where this occurs. Young, old, neighbors come through, right? So it's a big community practice. Within the practice, right, now we're looking at how things that are mundane otherwise become sacred in this context. This is sel roti, the bread. This is the standard, typical, identifiable Nepalese bread. And it's said to have a particular meaning, which is crucial to this festival. It has to be made into a circle. That's the requirement. But what's really important is the ends have to overlap, because the meaning of this bread is that your endings are overlapped by another beginning. So separations are then brought about by reunions, Okay, so when the Bhutanese refugees, the family left for Ohio, we had a big sel roti dinner and everything else, because if we eat sel roti together, the end will lead to another beginning, will lead to another reunion. We're going to look at what this means in terms of the Swasthani, too. Why do ends become beginnings again? This is a picture from the Swasthani text. Okay, so you see these are two Naga serpents, or cobra serpents. You see what they have in their hands? Sel roti, right? Why are they bringing each other sel roti? Cobras are very important in this part of the world as very much religious figures. So let me read you from the Swasthani text the story of these two Naga serpents, why they are giving the king Naga serpent and the queen Naga serpent sel rotis to each other. So this is from the text itself. So it says, 4 of the breads, let's see, were found and caught by a Naga called Shanghasila. Sorry about that. But being unable to catch the other 4 breads, they floated away. Meanwhile, the Naga thought, oh, what exceptional breads I've caught. Now, without my wife Shankavati, how can I eat these breads all by myself? It's been 12 years since I left Nandini. I'm going to search for her, whether she is alive or dead. Thus he went down to the Salinadi river to look. Then the other 4 breads, which the Naga was unable to catch and which floated away, were caught by the Shankavati Nagini. So the queen catches 4 of them and the king catches 4 of them. At that time the Nagini thought, oh, how did these exceptional 4 breads get here? Now if only I could feed these breads to my husband. How could I eat them alone? Where could my husband have gone? I'm going to search. If I find him, we'll share these breads and eat 2 each. If I don't find him, I will certainly abandon my life breath. Having said this, the Nagini went to search for her own husband. Then at the confluence of the Ganga and Jamuna rivers, they met each other. At that time Nagini saw her husband's faith, and bowing to him affectionately, she asked, "O Swami, since you left me, where did you go to live? Are you well or not? O Swami, I want to tell you one thing. If you ask what, it is that today I caught these 4 exceptional breads. At that time, with you gone, I was wondering how I could eat those all alone, and thus I came to search for you. It took a long time. Finally, I came here to look in the Salina Ganga, thinking that if I didn't find you here, I would certainly abandon my life breath. With my luck, I found you." Hearing his wife, the Nandini, tell this, the Naga smiled impishly and said, "O wife, I also caught 4 exceptional breads, just like you. At that time I thought, how can I eat these exceptional breads all by myself? So I went searching for you in the Gandaki rivers, and in the streams, and I thought I would come to look in this river, and came. O Nagini, through fate I have met you. Therefore I have peace of mind. Now you eat 2 of these breads, and I'll eat 2. Thus he gave 2 breads to the Nagini. And the Nagini likewise gave 2 of the breads which she had caught to her husband. And distributing 2 and 2 each, they shared them as they ate, gazing at each other's faces and smiling and laughing affectionately. Right? This is, I think, I'm going to break here and tell you more of the story, but I think this is, you see the spirit in these stories? We really have a lovely, affectionate, playful, loving relationship between the Naga and the Nagini, right? We don't have this sense that in this story that, she is oppressed by him, that she has to feed him and he doesn't feed her. It seems like a very loving, mutual relationship. So I think that's important to think about when we look at older texts and we think that women simply live oppressed lives. Not to say that there aren't things within a society that always need improving, but we also have to be aware when we see stories like this that present a model of love and affection that we recognize that too. So after eating, the Nagaraja said, "O wife, Nagini, seeing your face, I feel great pleasure. Because of these rare breads, we have been reunited. Whatever person floated these breads in the river, may their heart's desire soon be fulfilled. May Lakshmi reside in their homes. May that person's enemies be eliminated. In this world, may that person enjoy great happiness, and in the next, may that person attain residence in Kailasa. Oh, dear Nagini, now let's go to Antapura." Hearing this, the Nagini said, "O husband, I shall bestow a blessing upon the person who floated these exceptional breads." Right? They found them in the river. "May the Nagagraha be unable to catch that one pain, and may Ishvara protect that one at all times. Also, just as we who were separated were reunited because of these breads," right? That's the power of the overlapping circle. "May that one be reunited soon with the one whom she wishes to be reunited with. May the most excellent wishes of that person soon come true." After both wife and husband had given their blessings, they went to their own places and lived peacefully. Right? So there's the power of the Swasthani, and you can see that the person writing the text is really addressing the person reading the text and bringing that person into the story, because we're going to see later who floated those sell rotis on the river to begin with, right? That's part of the ritual. So now they're brought directly into the narrative itself. So, and cobras and the serpents are very, very important in this ritual. And I want to also point out, because I was sitting there and noticed that the emblem here of the Vedanta Society also has the cobra circling the whole image. So we know the serpent, the coil. We know that part of this religious worship is involved with the kundalini and the energy of the spine as the serpent within. And we're going to see that there are many physical practices involved with this worship. Yantras. And I want to, and we can recognize them as coming from the Tantra tradition. And I want to just clarify that because in America that word has gotten distorted a little. But in this context, I'm using one of Constantina Rhodes's definition, which means tantric traditions move into the esoteric realms of interior worship and transformation of consciousness. The goddess represents the divine power that lies within us all, right? This is, you're getting hints of where Swasthani is significant. Tantric practice seeks to generate siddhi, the spiritual power of attainment and perfection within the practitioner's own body and consciousness. So this is very relevant to what the women are doing during the Swasthani ritual and their goals as well. In particular, another visual from the Swasthani text is, and you see Shiva on the right side there, playing with Parvati, his wife, right? They're playing a dice game. And as the story goes in this text, as they play, Shiva keeps losing, okay? And it's sort of the first example of like a strip poker game in sacred text, because as he keeps playing, he keeps losing his attributes. So he loses he loses first, he loses the cobra, right? And then he loses the tiger skin, and then he loses all of his clothes and symbols. And finally, he says, okay, one more game. I'm going to win now. This is the gambling personality. One more game. And Parvati says to Shiva, well, we can't play one more game. You have nothing else to lose. And he says, okay, take my body. Okay, then you'll get that. And she says to him, oh no, I already own your body, right? You can't wager that. Now, for us, right, that has a certain meaning, but we got to tap into what symbolic meaning her comment has in the context of this ritual. So we have to look at this, and this is very basic to the ritual, and when I ask questions of the refugees, they will say, this is the thing, we are one half of each other's body. Okay, so this is a model they have, but it's a model also of consciousness, too. Because what we're looking at in this text is Shiva's wife is Shakti, right? The basic energy, right? And Shiva as consciousness. So that duality, those concepts that we have of Purusha and Prakriti are there as well. But even this image is a little bit not accurate for how this group is seeing this practice, because this looks like a duality. This group is very much this focus is very much based on a unity. So even seeing these two as two separate but united isn't enough to really represent the inherent unity that is going on here. So consciousness, pure consciousness, and then its many manifestations are actually united as one. So let me go back, oops. Okay. So when Shiva loses all of those manifestations, the many things that Parvati gains, right, they're really saying that pure consciousness and the many manifestations of consciousness, right, are one. They're one being, they're one single. This is the ultimate Advaita that this group is part of as well. And that we're talking about this as a state of consciousness, we have to recognize, if you see below the grinding tools, right, we're also recognizing this as Shiva's power to transform consciousness. So if we say Swasthani means, right, established in your place, right, in your own place, where is that anyway? Right? That's the basic question. This is at the ritual in the morning of that all night, right? There is a ritual that goes on. And you're going to see throughout that ritual is an emphasis on where that sacred place is. Let me read you a quote. In the center there, you can't see the other side, but let me show you what some of these ritual objects are. The emphasis is on the center, right? On the center space. Okay, so you can see what's on the center space, right? Right. The unity, the Om is at the center. That's where Swasthani is. Let me show you a quote from the book again. So the book has both these stories of the gods, goddesses, as a model for the transformation of consciousness, right? Because this initiate is devoting her month-long practice of abstinence, of fasting, of bathing, of reading sacred texts to gain a certain spiritual consciousness, right? And that is established in her place at that center, and we see what is at the center. So the book tells these stories, and it gives instructions along the way. So one of the instructions is, it says, then, to the one called Swasthani, who is Swastha Devi, the goddess within yourself, establish her in her own true form as the letter Om, written on a ritual mirror, and worship her, right? Think about this. This is incredible because they're really setting up this spiritual cognitive experience where you see the reflection of yourself, but you also see it overlaid with the symbol Om. So let me show you what you guys look like, right? You see whoa. You see yourselves in here, right? Right? Well, yeah, because Swasthani is within, right? This sacred center. That's okay. So in the ritual artifact, the ritual plates they use, they're going to do these mandala type designs with the Om in the center. The center is being marked as that holy space, the sacred center. So these are painted during the ceremony in the morning. Now also the pundit does this. Before any of the ritual objects go on, he does the sand drawing on the cloth. And again, this is a geographical design that is intended to concentrate the energy at that center, right? It's a transcendent model of the spiritual map that we're looking at there. So that's where it will be. Now for this Swasthani this year, those 4 women were the Swasthani initiates there. And I love the little girl looking on because she's learning, right? Okay, so Swasthani, in your own place. We saw that the emphasis was on Shiva, Shiva's bride with Parvati, who derives from Shakti, right, the energy source of the female. And what happens in the process of Swasthani is as the women purify themselves, because to be pure, right, is to leave the physical behind and become the spiritual totally. They become, and this is what I was told, the bride of Shiva. Okay? Here's the ring in the center space of the plate. Okay, so those 3 women become the bride of Shiva. In other words, they become divine, right? Because remember we saw that that image with the 2 become one. So to become the bride is to become divine itself. They go through this ritual, and you see they are going to wear these rings of commitment, right? So the pundit there weaves these during the service and gives it to the women to wear. And there's a ring with rice and money. This is the abundance, the fertility, the wealth of what they are engaging in. And some more parts of the ritual. Okay, there are other parts as well, which I can't go into too much because it's a whole practice here. Right? This bowl will be, with the red will represent Shakti, and here with the white, and the double bowls you'll see is Shiva, and so much amazing, beautiful, wondrous symbolism. So again, all the rice and the giving of the rice. There are the women. And the whole community, by the way, is here, right? It's a community event, because these women are really engaging with the spiritual and religious meaning and sources of meaning of the community. And to me, this is really one of the heights of the thing, of the service, is when she brings in the light, right? This is, to me, the real meaning of the whole ceremony, is her bringing in the light. And you can see with the women around her, you know, how sacred and how holy this moment is. Okay. So that, let me go back because that's a pretty picture. So there she is, she brings in the light. This service goes on all morning, and then there's a community meal afterwards. And then there's a little bit of a break in the day, and then people start gathering again as it's sundown to start the reading, right? To start the all-night reading, and it is all night. And I have to say, I stayed up for that night, and it's an experience to be able to do that. And just to be part of the community that I don't know, there's a bonding that happens, that goes on with that. At the end, when the morning comes, when the first light comes, you take all of the ritual objects and you bring them to a river. So here is the group at the river. Also the tree, there was a tree that the Shiva representations were hung on during the service, during the ceremony, and that has to be planted by a river. So we planted it by the river, and there you can see the selrotis over on the right, ready to float away, right? Ready to be floated. Now, and we see, and this is what I think is so amazing about this text. Let's see if I can, okay. Okay, so there's a story about Kandravati in the book who does something that really offends the goddess, and she has to make up for it, and she does the Swasthani to make up for it. And then it says, and then according to the advice of the Apsaras, Kandravati took 8 of the sacred selroti breads along with auspicious food, and sitting by the river she said, "O Swasthani, now I don't have my husband here, nor anyone I call close or a distant relative. I have stayed here all alone for a long time. O Swasthani, please be contented and reunite me soon." As she prayed, she floated the breads in the strongly flowing Salina Ganga river. After doing puja, she took the 100, they make 108 selrotis, right? That's sacred number. She took 100 sacred selroti breads, and sustaining herself, her body became more beautiful than before. With her own body she was pleased, and saying, "Thanks, thanks, thanks to Sri Swasthani." She continuously recited the name of Swasthani while she stroked her own body. Okay, so she became the transformation. Okay, so I want to... Now, after all this, I was very intrigued by this ceremony, and I think it offers so much, and I think I don't even understand the least of what this ceremony is about, because I think this is something that every time you go through it, you learn more and you understand more. But one of the women said to me, this is the advice, right? Just do it, right? Don't ask why, just do it. Just do Swasthani. Explanations lead you down the wrong path into falsity. When you do, you understand, right? And this is basic to the experience. It's an experiential practice. It's not based on books and study and intellectual questions and academic concerns. It's very much an experience that you gain by doing the practice. And I think this is a profound lesson. So I want to move it here. So I went to the Swasthani, and by the end, as we got into the evening, more and more, Chandra decided I didn't look Nepalese enough. So she called her neighbor to bring a sari over, and they dressed me up, right, to be part of the ceremony. So I think that this is an amazing ceremony. I think that as you go through the processes of purification, that's what the ceremony sets you up for, with the fasting, with the 3 times of bathing a day. You're preparing your body for an experience, right? And as you are hearing the narratives all month, you're hearing the themes and the values that you are inculcating through this process. At the end of the month, you do this very beautiful ceremony, And then with the all-night reading, there is something extraordinary that happens, because through sleeplessness, if anything else, but with everything that you have prepared for, both in mind and body and belief, right, the end of it is to become Swasthani, right? That is what you lead to. And that was, I thought, very, this is basic to Hinduism. The God is within yourself, right? You are that. But for me, this was quite an extraordinary model of becoming the goddess. In the beginning, you're praying to her as if she's an external power, and then in the process of ritual, you realize that that power is within yourself, and that you are Swasthani, right? That's your own place, your sacred place. So I have time for questions at this point. Yes? Oh, like there's something illicit going on? I think it's a great accomplishment, right? Because you've achieved, a divine state. I think it's a big honor for you that you have a wife is that dedicated and commitment. Well, men could participate in this, like it's not totally restricted to women. So in Nepal, there are many more men involved with it. There is the part of the service, as part of the practice as well, is to make 108 of basically everything that's on the altar. So they have the Janaya cords that the Brahmins wear. They make 108 of those. The flowers, 108. Whatever the offering is, and they sell rotis, 108. Okay, but now at the end of the ceremony, there's a practice where the woman takes 8 of those and gives them to her husband specifically, whereas the 100 are distributed in the community. And some of that was echoed in the story about the Nagas, right, where they were bringing them together. Now, how do you interpret that? Like, what is going on there? We don't see, I don't believe, any other ritual where that 108, that sacred number, is broken up into 100 and then 8, right? It's usually one unit in an entirety. So some scholars think it's giving primacy to the husband over the wife, but I don't think that's going on, because we have to look at, let's see if I can get to it. This is one of the basic images of Swasthani. She is in the center, and there are 8 manifestations of her around. And that figure of the mother of 8 seems to be a repeating theme in the practice. So I think there's an acknowledgement there of his role in this, with giving him the 8. I don't think it's a diminution of her power as much as an acknowledgement that she has the power to give. The 8? There were 8 breads in the story. Yes, exactly. That's the 8 breads, right? Yeah. And also, she's doing this. If he's ill, she's doing it for him. So she's taking on, we might say, the burden of the practice, but also the blessing of the practice, too. So I think I don't think it's so separate. And you could see the men in the pictures in the beginning. The men are, the men are all reading it, right? They came in and read, too. They're all part of it. And that's why I think we have to look at that community dimension. It's not really sort of us against them as much as we are doing this. And Swasthani is very important to this group. In fact, what's interesting, if I can add, this is right before the night of Shiva's night, right? And that's considered the marriage time. But here, with the the Nepalese Bhutanese refugees, Swasthani is really the one that's celebrated because they're right up against each other. So this is more important, but I think it is a united experience.